here on the Stagecoach, we have a series of pieces put together for the front. It's got them stacked up here. We got a crossbar, a rear bar, I think they're called the hounds, and then the drawbar, whatever that the horses would be hitched to. First thing what I do, we need to make these brackets that go around this crossbar. I've already made them here, 4 of them, and the way I did is I just used a set of, where I put them, some pliers that are made for bending photo etch. So you just come in here, bend it around for it to start. And what I usually do is I'll bend it around, and then I'll tap it with a hammer to get a sharper corner on it. And from there you can come on here and just start getting it bent around. Nice corner on it, and shape it all around. When you're done with, then you cut off the length. When you're done with all of that, what you end up with is these pieces here for going around the end. You can leave the bottom end bent up a little bit, and that will actually tighten it onto the wood a little bit more. So when you slide it on, it holds on a little bit better. But once you have all 4 of these done, they can just slide on to place. And you can see what they look like here. There's another flat piece here, and then another piece that goes around the front of this piece of wood, but this needs to be shaped first. I was playing with it with a scrap piece, shaping it down, and I found the best way to do it is just to do a stop cut and then just whittle it down to that stop cut and get a shape on it. And from there, you can use the same technique to bend these. You can bend this piece to go around it. This is a laser cut piece, or a photo etch cut piece. So you don't have to do any shaping on that or drilling holes. These ones here you have to do shaping, and these ones here will have to have holes drilled in them. So I'm going to go ahead and get this piece shaped and come and shape this piece around. We'll come back and start assembling. All this brass I'm also going to blacken. So when I come back, I'll shoot blacken and we can start assembling. Okay. So now I have these brackets made up. I went ahead and with just an awl marked out where the nails are going to be, marked a center line so I can get it at least somewhat centered and measured in from this inner edge to the end of the bar to get these things as centered as I can on this. Then I need to drill the holes in here because there's going to be nails that go in there. To do that, I am just going to use a little vise here. To hold them down. Hopefully I can see in there. Probably put something underneath it. There we go. So I can see what I'm doing. Drill right into place in the wood. And turn the camera here. I'm just going to use a dremel in its drill press. So that should give me a good good fixture for drilling this. So I'm going to go ahead and drill this off camera, and then we need to start carving out the tongue for the brass that goes around it. Okay, so I'm starting to shape this piece here. This will be off the front of the wagon that the horses would hitch to and stuff. It's supposed to have like a bulb on the end, and then this piece of brass bent around it. Started out by just cutting a little notch here to give me a stop for the knife, and then I'm just whittling it on down, a little bit at a time. You want to make sure you have the stop cut, so it'll help keep your knife from just going off and just shaving everything off. No real shape to it. Just want to get it down and in. And then when you're done, you can come back and sand it smooth and everything. Just like this end. I'm going to come through and I'm going to give it a bit of a taper. I'm going to give this a bit of a taper so this piece can just curl around it. Again, just stop cut. And you just come in with your knife and just start shaving that wood off. Kind of want to keep it balanced side to side, and where this end of the cut is. Keep turning it and just take a look at it and see what it looks like. Further back. That's pretty good. Now I'm going to do everything else with just sanding. So I'll come back and we'll get this thing here bent around. So bending this piece around, the first thing I did is I marked off the center of it, because that center you're going to want to have right in the center of the front. So possibly you want to have these wings end up at the same point back here across from each other. That's the way it should be. So then come in with the center marked. Go ahead and mark either side of the center, and that should be where I bend it. Again, I'm just using my photo etch pliers here. They're a smooth jaw on the inside so they don't theoretically mark up the brass. So come in like that. And then just for fun, I'm going to stick the sucker in here to get the other bend going. And if you're lucky, these points will be pretty much even with each other. I'm a little bit off. I'm not going to overly worry about that. That'll be adjusted a little bit when I do this part, I think. So it's like before, I'm just taking and using hammer to try to get that bend just a little bit tighter. Get this one a little tighter that way. My ends don't quite match up, but I have a feeling that they're going to be getting more funky as I go around these bends here. So I think should fit around like that. Next step is there's supposed to be bends right. I got to bend it in here and here, and then back out. So I come in and just mark it. I should be able to start bending that in. And come a little further out and bend it out. And if I have any luck at all, it'll fit right there. Same thing on this side. Get it put in. And then think about this for a second. I should be able to come in and start getting stuff bent around. with various implements to make it fit tight in there. Something like that. And my ends are even fairly close, not exact. You can see our initial bend here is a bit off, so let's come in with the pliers, straighten it out. And then I should be able to get a bend right there where I want. Oops, a little much. Oops. Also put it on the right way, right? Something like that. When this is done, it'll be glued in place so you can clamp it and where we have to do to make it fit. It'll be like that. So I'll go ahead and I think now I'll paint this piece of wood on either side. And prep it to be ready to have this piece glued on. When I glue it on, it's going to get clamped in here, so it'll be nice and tight. And I don't remember if there's nails in this or not, but I'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So I'm going to get this painted and all these brass pieces blackened so they can all go on. There's also one more piece here that needs to be blackened. If I can get it out of here. So all that gets blackened. All these parts get painted yellow on the sides like some of them already are. And then we can assemble them. Okay, first step of the assembly of this front. Make these names right. They say, okay, take the two hounds. These are called hounds. If I can trust Ingles Coat Shop's website or YouTube channel. And you put this, glue this curved piece on and let that dry. So I'm going to do that first and let it dry. Then I'm going to glue it on with super glue. I want to make sure you have a space in the front for the main beam to go in here. Make sure everything's even. I'm going to go ahead and clamp this together in the front. Assuming these clamps will hold. They're probably going to pop off at the first glance. It should work. Front's even. Go ahead and get this get some more clamps out. And I should be able to go ahead and glue this back piece on. just going to go right there. I'm going to glue down some super glue, just right onto the very end. I'm using gap filling, which is a slower cure, so I got a little bit of time to get this thing lined up how I want it. Oops. Or to completely drop it off. Don't know what I'm thinking. Dang it. Go ahead and use some of this specialized blue clamping material here, otherwise known as blue painter's tape. And that should hold it together, so I can go ahead and just glue this thing on. I'm going flush with the back and centered side to side. Once that's glued up, this piece will go in the front here, once it has everything on it, and this piece will have some couple of nails to go through it as well. But I'm going to let this thing fully set before putting the front piece on. Make sure I'm still lined up in the front there. I'll let that thing cure for a while. In the meantime, I need to sand down the sides of this piece where they don't want the yellow, and I can start getting the front glued onto it. Okay, I went ahead and assembled this front. Not much to show on it. I went ahead and had these holes pre-drilled on the top, set this place and drilled one hole down all the way through, put a nail in. Got this as square as I could here by measuring from here to here on either side, and then drilled another hole, put a nail in, and then did the last two. So hopefully it's pretty square. I think it is. And it seems to be, but I keep getting the optical illusion that it's not, so maybe it's not. Last piece to put in place here is this little plate that gets centered up right there. And it's going to get held in place with two of these little nails. So I'm going to go, so I can just go ahead and drill the holes for those. I'm just using a pin vise for this, and trying to get it visually centered. You don't necessarily need to go all the way through, because you can just take one of these nails, cut it off shorter, and put it in. Although in real life, I believe it'd be a bolt going all the way through, with a nut on the other side. The kit does not have that. But the kit's made more so you can see it from the top and see what it looks like, rather than flip it over and look from the bottom. A little bit of glue here. Take my nail I just cut off. And then it can just go. If I can find the hole I just drilled. I need tweezers. These ones here at the end's kind of wonky. "17 times the charm," right? One side and the other side. Probably helps if I have the light on. And all that leaves for this particular step is the bar itself, which I'm still gluing up. I'm just going to have to get some nails down here. And it gets 4 holes drilled in this end. So let this thing sit. Come back here. This is always fun because these nails will intersect with each other from one side to the other. I usually like to do them one at a time. If I bend that up a little bit. And find whatever I did with my tool I'm using to put super glue in, which I'm not seeing at the moment. It's here somewhere. Let's see if I can use a toothpick. Go underneath here. Oops, this whole thing is coming off. And nail it in place. For the holes, 2mm holes. Instructions are saying 10mm from the end. And for some reason, they're going to the edge of the hole. So it's a 2mm hole, 10mm from the end. You're going to go 11mm for the center of the hole. And there's 4mm between holes, so 6mm from center to center. Six millimeters, 6mm, and 6mm. And these are the ones that actually get, one of these actually attaches it to the the wagon. Big drill, and when you're drilling these, if you want to get them centered, you would normally go from either side. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to be daring. And go on through. Just like that. Get that side a bit. One hole. 3 more will be done, so I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of these holes and nails in place, and I'll come back with the end result. Which I think, nope, there isn't. I was thinking there's one more step where we got to put these together with the pin going through, but I think that's in the next step or two. Yeah, it's in the next step. This is step 8, so it'd be step 9 we put them together that way. So we can get those done, and we'll come back with what it looks like. And here we have all these holes in the back drilled in. I got to do some touch up here with the paint. The front's done. One thing to try to avoid if you can, I didn't, is these nails should be directly across from each other. That should be a bolt going through. Mine aren't quite lined up. I don't think anybody's going to look that close. But then this whole thing is slipped together. And you got the first step of the front section of the wagon done. Next step will be to put this pin in, and looks like start on the brake mechanism. So that'll be a really quick step. First step is to figure out where to drill this hole in. And the instructions do not really give you a measurement on that. It's just drill a hole here. Oh, nope, it does. It says 14 millimeters back from this piece. Okay. So then I can grab my measuring stick, do it upside down so it'll be on the bottom where you can't see it. Come back. Millimeters back, mark a spot. On this side, same thing. 14 millimeters back, mark the spot. And hopefully they are pretty well in alignment. I think what I'll probably do is drill through one of them, put the tongue in, and then go all the way through. So drill through one side, stick the tongue in so you have a hole here lined up, and then go all the way through. Don't worry about the holes in the bottom here. They're on the bottom. You never see them once this thing is displayed. So, the same size bit. A hole that goes straight through and is centered on the other side. That looks like I do. Right here. Just about on target. Little low, but that's fine. And the last step is to make the pin that goes through here. I'll have to find my parts for that and come on back. So off camera I went ahead and glued together the brake, which just consists of 3 pieces with the edges painted yellow. And then the brake pads also have notches cut into them. Next is to start gluing the axles together. So there's front axle. 2 pieces for the front axle. Don't know why they have 2 pieces rather than one solid piece for like the rear. And then 2 pieces that get glued together that will eventually sit on top. First of all, these need to be glued together. These need to be glued together. And then once these are completely dry, I'm going to let them dry for a day. I need to mark them up and cut slots in them to fit this piece into. So these get slots in them, they'll go on top, then they'll go on top of that. Sandwich it all together. Let's get these things glued together first. Then I'll get these things sitting for a day to dry out. I'm going to use wood glue for these because, well, it's wood. And wood glue should theoretically give me a stronger bond than super glue. So go ahead and put glue on these. And for you woodworkers out there, I'll put glue on both sides. So that's directly what you should do anyway. Then make sure everything's lined up. And go ahead and clamp them together. So I should get that together. Have them slide against each other and not line up the ends. And then get these things glued together. One thing you do to help keep from sliding against each other as you're clamping up is just put a spot of super glue on either end, or so it won't be seen, to help hold everything in place. You guys keep seeing mine seem to want to slide against each other. There's that. So I'll let that dry overnight. Clean up the excess glue, let them dry overnight, and then we can come back and sand the edges and start cutting out the slots. Glued together. Next is to cut notches in the top of the axle to allow these pieces to set into it. So to facilitate that, I've glued the wagon tongue into place so that I can get everything level here, figure out the centers, all that stuff. Per the instructions, the leading edge of the axle is 46 millimeters from the trailing edge of the hollow bar. So using a little engineering rule here, 46 millimeters back, both sides. I've already marked it where it wants to be. And then, since I need to cut the notches as deep as the hounds, I took the piece of wood the hounds are cut out of, took my axle, flipped it upside down, and made a line on either side for how deep to cut. So that should give me the depth from the top of the axle to allow the hounds to be sunk in. So with that, I can go ahead and give it a cut. 4 cuts to define the opening. I'll probably do a couple of cuts down the center to make it easier to pull the wood out. Just use the back saw for that. Then you just come in and hopefully get a nice cut right across where it's supposed to be. Cutting no deeper than the line on either side. I'm going to leave it short of the line so I can fine tune with a file and get it so that everything fits flush. But I'm going to go ahead and get that cut and come back. So I've cut the slots with the back saw. One thing that makes it easy to remove the wood in here down to a point is stick your saw in and just go to one side and it'll break that wood off inside that you've already cut. That way we have a lot less wood to try to get out of there. So when we continue on, I just got to file them down and make them fit, and that's going to just take a lot of back and forth with the file. So, after much trimming, sanding, filing, cutting, I have the notches cut in. Not perfect, but I think they'll be good enough. This one ended up being a little bit wide. I had to do that on purpose because I was a little bit crooked. Then once this top piece goes on, it'll tighten them right up. So the next step for me, I think, is to glue these together. I know at some point in time, we have the metal brackets going over it, and there's going to be a rod that goes from this bracket up here back to the axle. Since it has to be cut or shaped in place, I don't think it matters now to glue this in. Instructions say to glue it in, so I'm going to go ahead and glue it in. But first, glue it in. At some point in time, we need to drill out and put axles in the end of this axle beam. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and glue this in. I'm going to spot the bottom in with super glue so I can get it. Now I'm going to do it all in wood glue, I think. That way I can have the ability to move it around to where I want it. Get some super glue out. I'll get some clamps out. I'm going to use these nice big clamps that'll hold everything tight. Tighter than the small ones. So, go ahead and find me a scrap piece of wood around here. If I can find one. Hold on. That'll work. So, glue in the bottom, up the sides. I'm trying not to get it all the way to the edge because I'm trying to avoid the squeeze out. And this piece will basically hold itself in pretty good anyway. So that piece goes in. And then this piece gets glue all along the top or bottom of it. I'd already glued or drilled a hole in it for the kingpin, whatever we want to call it. Some glue all the way along it. When I get this glued, I'll have to come back and I'll have to paint the side of this. So that goes on. But painting the side will be no big deal, just a little mask around the beams, or just be careful not to hit them. Glue it up, center it up. And right there. Last thing to check is to see if I'm square. See if I'm centered. About 5. So I can move it over here. This tight bond grabs pretty quickly, so we'll just clamp here. That little bit has gotten this glue to already clamped down. So then this is supposed to be about 46 and about 44 on that side. So I can move it a little bit. Probably about right there and call it good. Let it dry. Come back, mask off, and paint the sides of it. And this one should be good to go. I'm going to let that dry overnight since it is kind of a structural piece there, but that'll be fine. So let it dry overnight, come back, paint it. When we come back, we get the bands on, bit run band, and then some rods go up to the drawbar, hull bar. So here I have the front axle and everything done. I did not catch this on camera. Not much you would be able to see anyway. But I went ahead and made the bars that go here on either side. They're drilled into these axles, drilled into the hull bar in the front. So it looks like it goes to the front. These bars are shaped. They have rings on them, bands on them, rings attaching here. It's a big piece that sticks out from the front that's supposed to be an extension of this. It's not a separate piece that the ring goes through. But there it is, everything's done. So now I can move on to finishing up the brake system in the frame. Thank you for watching, and next time we're working on the brakes.